Well, good morning, folks. Leigh Farnell here, leading your best life. And this morning I'm with Amanda Ewin, who is a person I met at our Pod Squad swimming and at coffee. She said, look, not am I a podiatrist, but I'm a life coach and I have a podcast. So I said, well, you better talk to each other. So Amanda, welcome to Leading Your Best Life.
Thank you so much. Nothing like diving in at the deep end.
Mate, well, look at you. You're looking very aquatic, very ocean there today. And we swam together this morning anyway, didn't we? Did you swim this morning? I think you were there, weren't you?
I did. Yes, I was on your feet, Leigh.
Oh, that's right. You were, mate. The conditions have been superb, haven't they?
Oh, just delightful. And noticing the brain message that tells you in the morning as it gets cooler not to swim. It's a crazy idea, and just doing it anyway is the best thing.
Yeah. Well, one of the people I had on a podcast recently, Greg Diamond, was talking about having a sense of awesomeness and gratitude. And this morning, boy, oh boy, I mean, the last few mornings, although I see the weather is about to change, which is a whole other thing around, well, no matter what the weather is, I love that Norwegian saying, which says, there's no such thing as bad weather. It's just people badly dressed for the weather. Just get the right gear on.
Absolutely. Yes. And if you have the courage not to wear a wetsuit or the body that doesn't shiver for the rest of the entire day, then great. But outside as well, you've got your beautiful scarf on and beanies and, it's just the most incredible way to start a day.
Right. Rug up. Well, let's start talking of start. Let's start with your journey. What has been the Amanda Ewin journey? Where were you born, schooled, and what's been your journey so far? Just to set the scene.
Oh, so I was born in Perth raised, grew up in the hills. My dad still lives in the same house since 1971. So I was born in 69 and on a 3-acre bush block in Glen Forest, and spent a lot of time in nature. I was a hills person, and my grandma lived in Scarborough. So we spent a lot of time at the ocean or near the ocean, and my dad grew up near the ocean, so he loved it. It was just a massive mission to get there, but always loved the ocean, which is the connection now. I took 30 years off swimming. I was a swimmer in my teenage years, and I went to the local primary school, and then I started at the local high school, Eastern Hills Senior High School up in Mount Helena. And then my parents decided that they didn't really like the people I was hanging out with, so I should go to a much more salubrious school in their mind. And they sent me off to Perth College. So I went to Perth College for the last 2 years of high school, and then decided podiatry would be a good idea.
Where did that thought come into your head from podiatry? Who put that thought in your head about podiatry?
The job guide, those paper job guides that you have, the career guide that you have. Yeah. So I did work experience in law up and down St. George's Terrace, basically just being what they called the Girl Friday. What a terrible term that was, but luckily we don't use it anymore. And physio, I thought maybe I want to do physio, and I went to a children's hospital, and that freaked me out. So I was just flicking through the job guide one day, and it opened on podiatry, and I thought, that sounds a bit different, and it's ticking all the boxes. I could work part-time, I can travel, I can always have a job. There must have been an economic downturn in the late 80s because my parents were quite insistent that I did something that didn't depend on the economy. I loved helping people. I've always been a helper, reforming people pleaser, and it just ticked all the boxes. So I applied and got in, and 33 years later, here I am.
Amazing. But okay, so somewhere along the line, I know there's been children, and somehow you discovered life coaching. So you want to share a bit about that journey? And did you travel as well? I think you've traveled.
I have. Yes. So I went to Curtin University, studied podiatry, took a year off in the middle because it was a lot after school, and there was only 13 people in each year at uni, and it was off campus. So it wasn't this amazing student life that I hear so much about, that people loved. Uni was the best days. I'm like, no, it was awful. And a lot of contact hours. So I didn't really love uni. And I took a year off, worked on a gold mine as a gold sampler up in Walloona for a year. That was a very interesting experience. 4 women, 100 men, and a very naive 18-year-old. So some
Wow.
certain life experiences there.
That could be a whole other podcast, that one.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, there's been some unpacking from that in the therapy that I've had. And I travelled across Australia after that before going back to podiatry, just did 6 weeks, jumped on a Greyhound bus and went over and saw the big cities because I hadn't left Perth prior to that. And then I came back, finished uni and met my then husband when I was 20. And he was from London. He was here to play rugby. So met him at Clancy's in Fremantle, which is now like a 10-minute walk away from me. And we travelled after I did a couple of years' work for 5 years. So I lived in London and I worked in the Outer Hebrides in Scotland and Cornwall and travelled around Europe for a couple of summers.
Exactly. Yeah. So you got used to cold weather in the Outer Hebrides, I would imagine.
I think I took my jacket off once in summer. Like I was there for a summer and there was just wind. I had a bicycle for transport. There was just wind everywhere you went. Didn't matter what direction you started in. It was wind, into the wind. It was, it's quite wild.
It was always into the wind. Okay.
So, travelled around Europe, went across to Eastern Europe in a combi van and did the Munich Beer Festival and the Heineken brewery. Everything revolved around alcohol then in my early 20s in Amsterdam. And then spent some time in Turkey, went across to America on the way home, 4 months traveling across America from Boston to LA via the Rockies, skiing and cross-country skiing and visiting national parks. And that was pretty cool. We bought a big Dodge Ram for $400 and slept in that and had heaps of fun. And then New Zealand was next, 4 months there, learnt about tramping and did heaps of hiking and a bit of hitchhiking and some crazy stuff there. And then Sydney for a year before driving around the top, coming back. And to sum it up, doing what the Aussies do, buying a block of land, building a house and having kids and starting the next chapter of life.
Wow. There's an adventure there. Talk about life coach, life adventure. So what led to life coaching? How did you go from podiatry to life coaching?
So I can remember sitting with clients. I had my own practice in Midland for a decade. And I remember probably in my early 30s thinking there's more to life than feet. I didn't get, this sounds like a disservice to my patients, but I didn't get sick of treating feet, but I just knew that there was more and I could help people in a different way. I just got really frustrated when people would come in. I'd see them quite regularly, week after week. They'd have pain. They wouldn't be doing anything about it. Their habits would stay the same. They'd be complaining about the same things and living what I'd call crazy busy lives that, I was too. And I just decided, I knew that there was more, but I just didn't know what. And then I moved up to Karratha. My ex-husband found work up there, not in the mines, but associated with that. And there was so much more opportunity. I started a podiatry practice there. And the catalyst, Leigh, was losing my mum. So my mum died suddenly 11 years ago. And we've been in Karratha for 2 years. And she dropped dead of a stroke at 69, completely healthy on the outside, no medication, was still working and just died. I was in the middle of Karijini National Park when we found out. The ranger had to come with a satellite phone and say, your sisters have been contacting you. That's a whole nother story. And in the next year, I started to look at my life and I was packing it with everything and I was almost emulating my mum's life. And I thought that's what you needed to do for success. And I thought she had 400 people at her funeral and she was loved by so many people that I just need to be a volunteer on 5 boards and committees and have 2 businesses and be a mum and a wife and a friend and do all of these things until, I burnt out. Really just lost the ability. I was mountain bike racing and coaching and my body just said, no, we're not doing this anymore. And I was lucky. It wasn't severe. But I had to take a year off.
How did you know you were burnt out? What were the signs and symptoms of being burnt out?
Complete exhaustion, just absolutely exhausted, and going to all these medical practitioners to find the answers. And a naturopath did a study and said, you've got adrenal fatigue and you can't exercise for probably the next year, getting your heart rate up above 100. And I lost the plot. I burst into tears, and I just thought, who am I if I don't do that? My identity was attached to winning races and being this person that, you know, was a really good at mountain biking. I led social rides, but I also knew deep in my gut that it was too much. I just didn't want to stop, because that was kind of my addiction to coping with life.
And was your husband involved in mountain bike riding, or were you doing that separately?
No, he was. So yeah, we didn't ride together a lot, because I learned from a lot of husbands and wives that it's very challenging to ride with your husband, because they love to just disappear off into the wilderness, and he'd been doing it for longer, so he was better than me. So it would always be this really antisocial ride where, you know, I'd end up in tears because I couldn't keep up. And so just ended up organising social rides with other women. But that's how I got into it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Now, clearly, part of that, you talked about ex-husband. So at some point, in terms of burnout, there was also a parting of ways.
Yes. And I think I know, Leigh, that emotional fatigue and the challenging marriage towards the end impacted my physical health as well. And the mountain biking was a way I coped without knowing it. And, you know, I can get up and I can train for 12 hours a week, because then I don't have to face anything that I didn't even really know was there. So I had a lot of therapy, tried everything. You know, grew up as a fixer. I'm the one responsible for everything, so I can fix it. And then got to the point where I realized I couldn't. And the marriage ended when we were still in Karratha, which was quite challenging and is possible to anyone who's in a small town. You can do it, and life goes on afterwards. And so I had a year separated in Karratha, and my kids were older. They're getting into year 10 and 12, 2 girls. So I moved to Perth.
Okay. Well, we talk about leading your best life and life by design. So straight away, we often also say about crucial conversations, where a conversation with your parents was either going to, you know, get a job or get a career that's not affected by the economy. You know, so it's just like bang, that one conversation sets you on a path in terms of, you know, life by design, a conscious design. But then, as you say, then the trigger of your mother passing at age 69, and you going, wow, there's got to be more to life than feet. Again, like, it's a crucial conversation to yourself when that light goes on, let alone then the conversation saying, well, you've got adrenal fatigue. And then you have a conversation with yourself saying, who am I if I'm not riding mountain bikes? Like, these are all both conversations with other people and conversations with yourself. So tell me how that led to you being a life coach. Somewhere something's happened from these, what's happened to get to this life coaching career?
Yes. So in the midst of being on all these boards and committees, I was chairman of the Small Business Centre in Karratha, which was part of the Small Business Development Corporation, and they had a conference in Melbourne. So I went to Melbourne to the conference, and I allowed an extra day in Melbourne, and I Googled life coach, and I jumped in a taxi. I went 30 minutes across the suburbs to this amazing woman, and Kate James, her name is, and we had a 4-hour discovery session in person. And when I walked into her house, I went into the room we were spending the 4 hours in, and I just had that incredible feeling, a bit like meeting the pod squad, of just this inner knowing that this is where I belong right now. This is the perfect place for me. And we spent 4 hours together, and she said to me, did all of the things. And she said to me, what's the first step you can take towards this next step, whatever it is, whether, you know, some kind of coaching. And so it was a workshop with a colleague. Could I ask a friend or a colleague to co-host a workshop with me? And that led to I had a business coach at the time, who's now one of my closest friends. And we went out to Point Sampson, which is just north of Karratha, for those that haven't been up there. And it was a 43-degree day, and we ran a one-day event. I think it was called Clarity and Direction, for 13 people. And I did the meditation, mindfulness, all of the things that I had learnt and loved to teach in my podiatry practice, because it helped people so much, and intuitively guided. And she did all the strategy stuff. She teaches leadership. And at the end of the day, I had that feeling of elation, like I just need to bottle this feeling, because this is it. This is why I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And that was the beginning.
Wow, I'm just writing it down. Bottle this feeling of elation, where you felt you'd really added value to people's lives, you'd changed them, and you talk about life by design, business by design. And interestingly, what we do in our PDC business is we talk about the importance of organizational development, systems, structures, strategy, but also personal development in terms of the inner world, goals, visualization, meditation, belief systems, putting the two together. And we've done that literally since 1985, when we were changing the culture of Australian telecom. The people on my team, or the team that I was with, said, we have to combine organizational development with personal development. Because the organization can't grow unless the people grow, and the people don't know what they don't know, and that has to include things like the way they think. And if you take it to the step further, these guys had been heavily involved in meditation with Muktananda in India, which at the time I had no idea about meditation, and I thought me swimming and playing water polo was enough. But clearly, over the years, I've learned that meditation and yoga plays a whole other role, which we may get to here. So you ran that workshop, and obviously, as you say, you discovered you'd been doing mindfulness and meditation yourself. So where did you learn all of those things, the mindfulness and meditation stuff?
So the mindfulness just came along with learning meditation, I think, and I have you can't see the library there, massive library of personal development books and now a massive library on Audible that I listen to consistently.
Right.
And some workshops that I went to, but I did a meditation course here in Perth with Eric Harrison, who has now retired. And my best friend at the time, well, she still is my best friend, she just isn't alive anymore. She got kidney cancer at 43 and died when she was 45, some time frame like that, we did podiatry together. She did the same meditation course to help her to cope with having a terminal illness. And I went along to the course, and 6 months later, I still hadn't practiced it. And then I had some major surgery at the end of 2010, just before moving to Karratha. And the meditation, I had bought his CDs. So that was it's only 14 years ago, we were still using CDs.
Yeah. And
I don't know how I would have got through that time if I hadn't had a meditation practice, because I was on the couch for pretty much 5 weeks, and that helped me so much with pain and with coping with the stillness, because I'd never been able to be still.
Well, there you are. Talk about life and the universe presenting you with a challenge. Here you are saying, I've got to keep mountain bike riding because that's who I am. And then the universe has said, no, let's learn what happens when you don't do mountain bike riding. That, you're reminding me, Sadhguru is saying, you're more than this body, you're more than this mind, and you're more than mountain bike riding. It's like a mate of mine in Sydney was going through stomach cancer treatment, and he was going to lose his hair. And I know all along he's been so proud of his hair. And I said, mate, you're more than your hair. And I knew that that thought alone was a shock to him. Really? You sure? You sure I'm more than my hair? And of course, he's realized on the other side of it, he's lost his hair and it's now growing back again, that, yeah, it's just hair. But again, what we attach ourselves to and our identity is so critical, isn't it? So let's talk about that for a second. In terms of your daily routines, in terms of looking after yourself, maybe before we even get to daily routines, let's just share your website, because people need to see this. From me, what is MEH? I saw that and I went, what is she talking about here?
You're clearly not my target market, but
no.
Leigh, but from meh. So that meh feeling that just when you just feel like there is something wrong and I don't know what it is, but I shouldn't be feeling like this. That's right.
Okay. All right. And there's you bursting out of the wall.
Isn't that great? I have the most amazing birth photographer,
Yeah.
Ella, who just came up with this vision. And she said, I've just got this big roll of paper and you're going to run through it in this tiny, so I nearly ran into the wall about on the other side about 10 times. We had to do some takes, but it was so much fun.
Well, she's clearly a very creative person to have that thought. I've got this roll of paper. I want you to run through it. There's a consequence to that, and that it's not a roll of paper anymore. It's a roll of paper with a hole in it.
Well, she did tear it first, because I don't know that I would have been able to break through it all without knocking. It was only a metre and a half wide, this roll of paper. So hanging from a thing in her studio. So yeah, I can't believe, I still look at the photos and go, wow, how did she do that?
Well, she has vision, of course. So some great things you've got there on the website. So folks, amandaewin.com, and then ways to work with you. Unfunk Yourself, a group program. Your Magnificent Life one-on-one package for 90 days, and then your Ultra Magnificent Life one-on-one package for 6 months. So maybe give me a couple of case studies of people, the before and after, like the Jenny Craig before and after, when they came, without, of course, using names and so on. But give me some examples of journeys people have gone on with you and the before and after benefits.
So generally when they come to me, some of them don't even really know they're asking for help. They just know that there's something more, and that, that feeling of, I should be happy with what I've got, but I'm not. And I don't know what's wrong with me. Am I depressed? I make sure we cover those bases and see a professional if that's the case. Often they've had therapy, or they're just not ready for therapy or counseling, and they want some accountability and guidance and direction. So there's two standouts with my one-on-one coaching, and one was in corporate and one had a photography business. And the one in corporate, she is in the UK, working with a global company for 23 years, and had become institutionalized. And she heard me use that word. I've also worked with people that have been in education and didn't want to teach anymore, but moved into management roles. They come and they're pretty burnt out, or, trying to overcome it and not go there again. And they can't imagine a life outside that. But in that institutionalization, they have also completely lost themselves and can't even remember what it's like to have fun. So what do you like to do for fun? I would ask them, and they'd be like, I don't know. I just work and I look after my family, whether it's elderly parents or their kids, partner. And they can't even remember. So, but they don't know that that's their problem. So they don't know they really need more fun and play in life to be able to live presently. And they definitely can't be still, but they don't know that that's the solution either. So, but they're just like, I just need some confidence and courage to change. And what does that look like? What are the steps I need to take to leave this job? Because I can't imagine doing it until I retire. And then we get clear on values to start with, which they don't even know what they are usually. Get clear on your values, use that to help with decision making. Let's look at what you love to do. Use a lot of visualization that you mentioned, back in 85, having the vision to use that is incredible. Because often what we think we should do isn't what we need or what our body wants for us.
Yeah. And of course, people can only make decisions based on what they know. So they don't know what they don't know. I mean, the concept of visualization or meditation or vagus nerve or breathing or calming down, where is that taught? It's not taught in, you'll learn more about the Great Wall of China than you will at school than any of those things that we've just spoken about, Pythagoras' theory, you'll learn about that before, and right angles, before you learn about the inner world. In fact, the inner world. So what we do, and what we know with our men's mental health work, is 40% of men have never talked to anyone about what's going on inside them. So when you start talking about these things, what are your values, or when did you last have fun, or what do you do for fun? As you say, one, institutionalization. We used to talk about the learned helplessness experiments of in large organizations, particularly, you know, in education and health in particular. We've worked in both those cultures. People learn over time that the best way to keep your job is to keep your head down, because no matter if I put my head up to try and make change, I'm going to get zapped by someone. So the organization teaches them to not be innovative, even though they might sprout the term innovation. It might even be a value on the wall. We're innovative here. We're customer focused. We care about people. Oh yeah, go and ask the people how cared they feel. You know, so because they're getting zapped when they try and either spend money, make a decision. Somebody's going to bully them. So those questions, in the early stages of those conversations, I'm sure you'd find eyes glaze over. You know, what language are you talking about here? Because it is a new form of language, isn't it?
It is, and often they come to me when they've kind of been asking the why am I here for a long time, and they're ready to move into the how do I take the next steps. So they may have already asked themselves a few of those questions, but often, sometimes they haven't even asked themselves how they feel. You know, they don't even know how to answer that. And particularly in my group program, that comes up.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, certainly as a guy, I know at times people said, how do you feel? I go, what are you talking about? What does it matter how I feel? Oh, who cares? Like, you kind of shut off from feelings and just keep pushing on. Now, can I just check? Do you work with males and females, or is your main group that you work with women, or who are your target market?
So my ideal client is female because I relate to them, and
yes,
I don't exclude working with men at all. There's no exclusion, or anyone that identifies as either. I market to women because it's, you know, the niche, and it's easy to speak to one particular person. And yes, I know my podcast editor, I messaged, you know, thanked him for doing 2 years with me, and, you know, it's still ongoing work together. And he said, I take notes and I've learned so much from you. And he's a Portuguese man in Colombia. So
fantastic.
You know, we have an impact.
Yeah. And that's the point. We talk about dropping a pebble in the pond. You're not quite sure where the waves go, the impact that you have. And that is the power of podcasts and the power of words. So that's a great piece of feedback from you. But coming back to your point, that line in your head of there's got to be more to life than this. There's got to, whether it be feet or teaching or feeling locked in. But as you say, that's almost a light bulb moment when you're saying there's got to be more to life than this. And then if you also then go, but I don't know what I don't know. You know, when have I even explored how life works? Which again, in our men's mental health, we talk about if your phone has an internal operating system, we also have internal operating systems. The question is, where did you get your internal operating system from, and when was the last time you upgraded it? And the other one is, have you even read the user's manual on how it works anyway? Which, of course, when it comes to, you know, mind, life, relationships, relationship with self, okay, where did you get your internal operating system from? And in most cases, it's from mum, dad, the footy coach, the priest, the school teacher. And you go, and where did they get their internal operating system? And how current are they? And how good were they anyway in terms of their own life by design, leading your best life? What are your thoughts on what I've just said there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's exactly what I did, was role model what I thought I needed to do based on what was role model to me. Oh, mum had all these people at her funeral, you know, and even prior to that, well, that's just what you do to be liked and to be successful. And don't even stop to think about it. You just say yes. And I'm an adventurous person, have a cup half full attitude, which I feel very blessed to have naturally. And so just say yes, because that means, you know, there's more adventure, and that's what you think you should do. It's not till you stop and be a little bit still and listen, which starts with 30 seconds, my first life coach said. You want to meditate for 10 minutes, Amanda? I think you might need to start with 30 seconds of stillness, which she was very right.
Well, let's talk about your daily practices, because we talk to people about, you know, routines and rules and systems that we use personally in terms of our life and our career and our business. So what is your daily routine? Let's talk about daily and weekly routines that you felt have helped you and help you on a daily and weekly basis.
So, Leigh, it's interesting. Can I just quickly let you know the outcome of that institutionalized client? So
Please do. Sorry, we kind of drifted off that. Yeah.
That's all right. I just know if I was listening, I'd be like, but what happened? What was the outcome?
Where's that? I want the outcome. Exactly. Close the loop.
So she discovered what did bring her joy and she rediscovered what she loved to do, and would make time outside work because she was just filling everything with what she was working 70 to 80 hours a week, and then realized where she was using work as an excuse almost, and I have to show up. And she learned more about her way of doing things, why she was doing things, and then just learned to be still, have more fun, what did really light her up, and then how could she leave, an exit strategy, which she came up with herself. I never tell anyone they need to leave. They don't have to make big changes because it's often that day to day, which we're just about to beautifully segue into. That is where the change comes. You don't have to leave your job or your marriage or you get a bigger home or wait till the kids leave home to live that life by design. It can start with the simplest things, which leads me to my daily ritual.
Yes. So what are they?
So I prefer the word ritual to routine. I'm a big avoider of routine because it freaks me out. And potentially that means I need to have more of one. Every day is different by design. And now I've discovered the Pod Squad. That's an opportunity to be somewhere, and I can choose any day of the week. So I bounce out of bed mostly. Sometimes I roll out of bed.
What time of day do you tend to get up?
5 a.m.
Right. Is there an alarm that goes off at 5?
If I have to be, I've had a couple of Zoom meetings that I'm tuning in, listening to the last 3 mornings at 5. So yes, I'll set an alarm just in case, but generally I don't put my phone now outside my room, which I have a love-hate relationship with, and have learned that I can leave it outside the room, still hear an alarm if I need one. Generally, I'll wake up before the alarm and then aim to welcome the day in, be grateful for whatever my body comes up with, whatever I feel grateful for. And then I now have a kitten that I've had for 7 months. So she wants to be fed straight away. So I go to the bathroom, clean my teeth while she's running in between my legs, and then feed her, put the kettle on, have a beautiful cup of either Earl Grey or Genmaicha, my favorite Japanese tea, and aim to sit down. And she'll come and sit on my lap usually. And on these cold mornings, it's a bit hard to get out. And then I will head out to the beach most days. If I don't, I've got a client some days at 7 on Fridays because of the locations in the world are different and you make accommodations. But mostly the best starts to my day are when I get out in nature, whether that's a pod squad swim, a big walk and a tea bag swim, and a coffee afterwards if I'm connecting with people, which I do with the Pod Squad and a few men that I swim with at Leighton Beach too. So that's the start of my day. And then I come back a couple of days a week. I go to a co-working space in Fremantle that I've just discovered because I do like to be around people and away from the home environment. And I'm much more productive when I do that. And I build connections as well, which I'm just getting back into. I've only lived back in Perth for 5 years.
Yeah.
And the pandemic was part of that, and having recovering from separation, divorce, and then a couple of other relationships, and just, navigating life and networking again, and, feeling confident enough to get back out into the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's interesting you do that, because the co-working space, I had some clients down at WeWork in the city, and I thought, wow, this I mean, I'd heard about it, but I'd never actually experienced it. And I can see, as you say, the energetics of a co-working space is just, as you say, people. And one of the things we talk about in our lifter group, which I've put you in touch with Tanya in Fremantle, is the importance of being in circulation, like a bit like a river, and being in flow, being in and around other people. You working as an island at home, even if it's all over Zoom, sooner or later, as you say, just from your own intellect and so being a herd animal, being out there, something else happens when you're in circulation, isn't it? So the co-work, that's an interesting thing you do, co-working space. So you've met people. Tell me about the co-working space, the benefit of that.
So it's new, so it's not inundated with people at the moment. And I think coming into winter, people are a little bit more reluctant. It's a beautiful big warehouse space and it's multi-purpose, and it's called Hybrid Warehouse, and it's just down from the pool in Fremantle. So it's a 10-minute walk for me, which is lovely. And I've met quite a few creatives. There's a couple with full-time jobs and you just get to chat. One guy's just come out from Ireland and never been to Australia, has a partner that's from here and has come out. So he's like in awe of our weather, and you just get to have incredible conversations that open your mind that aren't necessarily about work. Yeah. And it just raises your vibration. And then I went to the 50th on Saturday night. I'm fairly newly single again and again. That's another conversation. But yeah, need to socialize. And so that's been incredible. And it attracts people that are like-minded. That's what I love.
Yes. That's what I saw. A lot of positivity, a lot of positive energy in those places. So tell me, as you've worked with people now in your life coaching business and in your workshops, what are some of the common kind of mistakes or hiccups that you see people making regularly?
Not having enough fun and play, just working or thinking that they need to be giving to others all the time, whether it's their own business, their job, their partner, their kids, everybody else, their elderly parents, or just giving and not making time or prioritizing their own needs.
It reminds me, and again, I've made that mistake, of course, over the years with 3 kids and a wife and family and businesses and water polo clubs and so on and so on. That people, and I'd heard the metaphor, when a plane's going down, you give yourself the oxygen first before you give it to someone else. And so what the hell, selfish, what the hell? But of course, if you aren't getting oxygen yourself, then you're not going to last too long giving to other people. And certainly I know myself over time. I'll tell you this, years ago, we did a lot of work with TAFE in New South Wales. And we were literally, myself and my business partner were flying out of Perth Sunday lunchtime, getting in the car in Sydney, driving to Newcastle, and then running a 3-day workshop, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then the people from the previous group 6 weeks before would then come in and we'd do a 2-day follow-up. So it was 5 days. Then we'd get in the car on a Friday night, drive back down to Sydney, get on a plane, fly back to Perth. And then because I'd been away all week, I felt so guilty. I think Saturday morning was like netball with the girls. And then there was something else. And then I'd want to swim with my water polo mates before the netball. And then we wanted to go out and see our friends. And then James, my son, had soccer the next morning on Sunday, and I want to help with the goals or help with refereeing, and then do that, and then get back in the car and go back. Well, you can imagine, a good thing was my business partner and I would run every night after running the workshops in a way, which was a way of talking and debriefing what the hell had happened during the day, which helped us stay sane or relatively sane. But eventually I'll never forget, the lecturer guy said to me, a young guy, I think he was in counselling or social work or something, and he said, "Leigh, I can see you're burning out." And I went, "No, what, me? No," because I'm going, well, on the one hand, I knew he's absolutely right, but of course, I'm not going to go into a therapy session while I'm actually trying to run a workshop with the guy. And it kind of, that stuck with me. I mean, that's probably 20 years ago now, but it was a major turning point of, mate, what are you doing for yourself? And it probably took me another 5 or 10 years to even start making any significant change in that area. Because again, I mean, from a guy's point of view, but I'm sure the same with women as well. When you give, and you think, well, isn't that what I'm here for? It's not about me. But that, as you say, the oxygen mask and play, I'm sure when you said that to me before, which again, part of my master's thesis was the relationship, the Rappaports had a model, family, work, and leisure, and the importance of play. And as you say, doing things that you love doing, and that could be church group, and it could be meditation, or it could be playing guitar, but to replenish your own energy, not the least of which we say is if the only identity, and we used to talk about air in the life raft, came out of work or even out of family, but let's say work, which in a lot of people's cases, when that float goes and you don't have leisure, and if you haven't invested in family, you don't have family, where will you sink? And I certainly saw that in friends of mine, everything from mental health issues to even attempts at suicide. So what are some of the recommendations you make for people, and what may be some processes or exercises you get them to do to discover how to have fun, or to remember how to have fun? What are some of the things you recommend for them?
So one of the first things is visualization of, so doing a visualization, and it could just be 5 minutes of closing your eyes and thinking back to a time when you felt pure joy, where nothing else mattered in the world and all your senses were engaged and you're just like, this is it. And it may have been, hopefully not, but potentially when you were a kid. You may not have that memory since. It might have been last week, or it might have been this morning, like seeing those fish in the ocean, and it was such a beautiful morning. That's for me, a moment of pure joy.
Yeah.
And going back to that time, and then coming out of that visualization and going, wow, what do I do? Or what can I do? What do I like to do that replicates that feeling? Whether you think it's possible to do that in your life right now or not, just writing a list, brainstorming a list, doing it with a friend, or asking for help. I love helping people with brainstorming, and I thought everybody was good at that, but
yes,
brainstorming those ideas. And I wrote a list when the pandemic was on and I was pretty sick with COVID 2 years ago, 100 ways to play as an adult in less than 10 minutes. And solo. And, I encourage, that was for me because I was going through transition with my kids leaving home and being single, and not necessarily having anyone else to play with, but doesn't have to be solo. You might be sick of people around and you never have time to yourself. So you want to play with others. But so finding out and then on a list of 100 things, what's 5 things and what's one that you could put in your day today, and putting it at the top of your to-do list. How challenging is that?
Wow, what a great exercise. So that list, so if you publish that 100 ways to play as an adult, I mean, there's a product for you there straight away if you haven't already done it.
I have as a freebie. Yeah. So that's out there available, and scary for some people. They're like, just give me a list of 10, but you choose, and there's some fun things like scratching and sniffing a lemon, having a bowl of lemons in the kitchen, and then just picking one up when you're feeling so overwhelmed, just picking it up, breaking the skin and smelling it, and just, it's a reset where, breath work is amazing, but we forget if we're doing something physical, picking up a lemon, we see it, we're reminded, picking up a lemon, sniffing it, bringing that moment of, it might be 3 seconds where you're just not thinking about anything else.
Right, that's fantastic. I mean, the moment you said that, you made me think of, well, what I just remember moments of pure joy. Certainly, as you say, swimming in the mornings, some of those sunrises recently have been just incredible. But I recalled back, I say to people, we used to go down to Esperance, and I'd surf in the morning with my son and my mate, and we'd all be at the beach in Esperance. And then I'd be riding horses in the afternoon with my friends who had horses down there. And I remember racing through the sand dunes on the back of this horse, and thinking, this is bliss, surfing in the morning and horse riding in the afternoon. And in fact, I came at Wendy, the woman I used to ride with down there, with my mate Ian's wife. We bumped into them down the beach the other day, and she says, Leigh, I'm bragging here. She said that horse never went so fast as when you were on its back. It loved you riding it. I went, oh my God, Wendy, flattery like that will get you everywhere. But that for me was a moment of pure joy. But simple things I do during the day, it might be playing guitar. You know, I've got the guitars out downstairs and I'll just do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, depending, and sometimes loud and sometimes not so loud. But as you say, the moments of reset are so important. And having those tools and vehicles to be able to do that. Because one of the guys in the Blokes Talk Beachside, one of the co-founders, Paul, talked about working, training hard as an Ironman, working, and then for some reason they got rid of him at work, and he was completely shattered. He's lost, absolutely lost. And of course, these days he's founded Cottesloe Crooners, a men's choir, and a whole lot of bucket list groups. But in the absence of a strategy, people can get very lost. Well, as you said, who am I? And there's surely more to life than this, which again comes back to why have a coach, which is, well, let's talk about that, because I've certainly written papers on that, because people might say, why would I need a coach? So I suppose, let me ask you, when someone says to you, why would I need a coach? What would you say? A life coach in particular.
Everybody could benefit from one. I think the world would be such a better place. And why? Because it's someone who is on your side for you, rooting for you, an accountability partner, someone to go blah to without any judgment, any need for reciprocation. So you can talk to a friend, your partner, you know, other people in your life, but you've always got to listen to them and, you know, with their response as well. When a coach is someone who is there for you, has the tools and strategies from, you know, their studies, their learnings and their life experience, and working with others as well, to be able to help you find the answers to the questions you already have. You already know the answers. Sorry, you don't know the answers to, you have all within you, but you have a coach to help you extract those answers.
Absolutely. Well, as you say, one, you know, as I think about it, friends, we say birds of a feather flock together. So most of your friends are going to be similarly like-minded. So they're going to come from roughly the same box as you are. Whereas, as you say, you want someone who's able to think outside the box. We say people don't know what they don't know. Your friends don't know what they don't know. And not only that, your friends, as you say, you've got to listen to that you share your problems, then you've got to listen to them. But more to the point, they don't necessarily have the coaching or the educare skills, the educing skills, because in the absence of any training, the friend is going, well, what you need to do is, buddy, wake up to yourself, and what you need to do is, and let me tell you what I did so that you know, and it's like, well, one, I'm not just, you know, like we say, as you know, coaching isn't telling, coaching is educing. As Galileo said, you know, you cannot teach a person anything. You can only help them discover for themselves. So part of the coaching process is a facilitation, helping the person discover for themselves. And in most cases, a friend, unless they're highly skilled, is literally going to do that. Well, what I did was, and what you need to do is, or what my father did was, and it's a telling exercise, not a coaching exercise. What are your comments and responses to that? What are your thoughts there?
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. And it's just so true. And the other thing is, change is much more likely to happen when it's intrinsically driven. So someone else can tell you what to do. I can tell you what I think you should do, although I might have that in my head. But until you've deduced the process, I had a call with a client this morning who wants to get back into her morning rituals, going to the gym, eating better, working less, all the things, but it's so overwhelming for her to begin. I could say, okay, so all you need to do is get up at 7, it's her choice. Get up at 7, I could give her a whole list, but she's very unlikely to do it unless it's intrinsically driven. So what's the first step? The first step, I want to have 30 minutes before I start work, and that's it. You just need to make the tiny little changes. And so, yeah, I totally agree. And an analogy, a podiatry analogy for you, Leigh, came up with a client who I've been seeing trying to fix his heel pain, and it's just niggling and very challenging, on his feet all the time. And every time he comes in, he says, "Oh, someone told me to do this. Someone told me to do this. What do you think about this?" Like he's telling people because it's on his face at work. You know, people are seeing his pain. "Oh yeah, I had that and I did this. You need to do this." And it's not helping. But he has
Not only that, he sounds auditory in that because someone's told him, it's resonated with him, you know, that the NLP in terms of visual, auditory, kinesthetic. I'm a bit the same sometimes. If someone says, it really sticks because so I remember a quote from an affirmation from Tom Hopkins, the sales trainer. He actually had a series of affirmations on a plastic card that you'd hang in the shower. And the first affirmation was, never take advice from anyone more messed up than you are. And so, you know, he told me, but hang on, let's just take a look at who has just told you what's going on in their life. Has that worked for them? So just talk about knowledge sources, because as you say, you've got a library of books there. What are some of the books that you are either reading now or that you recommend people read if they want to lead their best life and, you know, jump out of bed in the morning the way you suggest they do?
That's a fabulous question. And the answer isn't the Miracle Morning, because I believe that everybody has their own guide, and that I felt like there is some wisdom in that. The first book that came to mind is Soundtracks by John Acuff, which talks about the stories in our head and the soundtracks that we have and the negative bias.
Yeah.
And he's very animated. I listen to Audible, and I really got a lot out of that book. And he may not be someone many people have heard of. And the other one's Big Magic is a gold. I mean, playing more in your life, having more space, doing less means you can be more creative. And Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert is a fabulous book about the ideas that come to you, and if you don't action them, you'll be the one saying, that was my idea, when someone else has decided to bring it into life. That's my biggest takeaway from that one. I adore Brene Brown's books, and I get a lot from podcasts as well, Jay Shetty and Tim Ferriss.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, you just reminded me, Tim Ferriss, I listened to him a lot and got, the Tools of the Titans and the Tribe of Mentors books. And one of the things that jumped out at me from those books was when Ferriss said 80 or more % of the high performers that he interviewed meditated or had a morning meditation practice of some. I went, what the hell? That's incredible. So I dug into it even more, and I dug up more articles, and then of course I've gathered a pile of research in and around meditation. So I was doing various meditations off YouTube, but in recent times, I started Vedic meditation last October with Elliot Smith down in Fremantle. He's fantastic, and my son and I did it together, and it's just been incredible. So twice a day, first thing in the morning, and then at some point in the afternoon around 4 o'clock, I've got it in my diary that's an appointment with myself to do that. But coming back to rituals, routine systems. One, you're reading, they're the books. What are your reading rituals? Because we say leaders are readers, and obviously coaches are readers. So you consume it by a hardcover book in bed, you sit in a chair, you listen to Audible while you're walking, a combination of that. I love asking people their reading strategies.
I listen to non-fiction. I nearly always listen to. I find fiction the opposite. So I read fiction just more recently in bed for maybe 10 minutes before I go to sleep. I sometimes pick it up during the day. I'll have it on the coffee table. And non-fiction I listen to. If I'm doing a mundane task at home, beach walking. Sometimes in stillness, I'll just ask myself, now that I am much more in touch with what I need, and I'll ask myself what I need, and it's often listening to a book while I'm walking and in the car. I don't do a lot of driving, but when I do, I like to listen to books then.
Fantastic. Because I just love, because, you know, everything from Elon Musk saying as a youngster, he basically read the library dry. Warren Buffett said roughly the same thing. Bill Gates walking around with a shopping bag with 6 or 8 or 10 books in it. These people are just incredible readers. One of my directors of Lifter, James Sutherland, has a goal of reading a book a week. It's like, whoa. And I just see this. And of course, it challenges me and stimulates me to read as well. So I just saw I got another credit from Audible come up yesterday. So I might check out either Soundtracks or Big Magic and immerse myself in that. I'm certainly reading on my Kindle on my iPad at the moment, the book Breath, which is just incredible about breathing. Have you heard that book or seen that book?
I've heard that book. I haven't read it.
Right. Well, it reinforced information I got around taping, using surgical tape to breathe through my nose at night. And I've got to say, it's just incredible because I've had sleep apnea for so long and then got sick of the machine. And then it came at the right time. One of the fellows that spoke at our Blokes Talk Beachside mentioned this taping thing. What the hell is he talking about? And then all the data that's come up out of it. And of course, the yogic people that I've spoken to in the last couple of weeks on podcasts talking about nose breathing and nitrogen and all the importance of it's just, I learned so much myself on these podcasts. So thanks for that. So before we move into any home straight, Amanda, is there anything we haven't covered that or a question you'd like me to ask you before we move into the home straight?
Yes. Ask me about the relationships I had post-marriage or what led to that, because I think I've been navigating some major change. I used to think I didn't really have a story until the last 5 years.
Wow. Well, that clearly sounds like a story. You've touched on it at the coffee shop with me. So let's do that. What the hell has happened since you parted with your husband?
So I had just over a year of contemplation and reflection. And in that time, you know, became friends with some different, you lose a lot of who you think are friends that, you know,
I found that myself going through the same marriage separation. Some of the friends that you thought you had, you don't have, but that's just, let's talk about denial, anger, bargaining, frustration, acceptance, accepting that. So you've had the same experience. So what happened then?
So the same experience. And then I fell in love with a woman and totally blew my mind. It was almost like leaving in a rocket ship and coming down and landing on another planet, because I had never thought that would be a path for me, or hadn't, you know, been that self-aware. I'm not sure. Still navigating that journey, and have since had 3 relationships with women and identify as gay. And so that's been a very interesting experience.
I would have thought so. That would have been interesting. Mother of 2, and then falling in love with a woman. It must have been scary the first time, or I suppose you must have gone through a lot of in your own mind going, what the hell's going on here?
It's interesting because by that stage, I'd done so much inner work and so much coaching and had an amazing therapist that had worked through all of the stages. And I'm ever curious. So like, what's wrong with me? Is this just a phase? And, you know, other people's opinions, you break up and one relationship ends, they're like, well, maybe you'll just go back to men now. And it's so funny, other people's opinions. Like, who
jump
knows?
back on the other side of the fence.
Well, never say never to anything, because life's just one big adventure. So yeah, it's other people's reactions more so, because I've just been open and honest and vulnerable about it. My kids were amazingly accepting as well. I think that generation, you know, my daughter went to an art school and she's a dancer and sort of surrounded by that eclectic world. As you know, it's much easier to talk about now. So yeah, that definitely a big influence in my life.
Yeah, great. Good on you. And look, to tell you the truth, I think I touched on it in my in our chat about this at the coffee shop. You know, I had my mother's brother in the 1960s was clearly very effeminate and gay, and never came out in the 1960s, working at Myer, and eventually had major medical, mental health problems and committed suicide. So, you know, in my world, it's like, well, we have my sister's daughter is just a champion person, I get emotional about it, just thinking about it. Liz came out as gay probably when she was 14 or 15, which is very brave again in Bendigo. And these days she captains Golden Square Footy Club. She's fantastic as a person. And I said, who gives a shit? To think that my poor Uncle Graham couldn't be who he really was in the 1960s, and he, took his life. It's like, why? It's just people just, if that's where you're at, that's where you do your thing. And the light that she shines through her sport, and it's just fantastic. Well, not only a sport, her whole, wherever she goes, she's just a fantastic leader and wonderful person. It's just like, well, and she's got a wonderful partner, and not only that, she even bought a house in my old hometown. I get all emotional because she knows how much I love the borough as well. So it's really beautiful, so good on you. And who gives a shit? Not only that, your mum went at 69. We're all going to go. I spread my mate's ashes last year with a group of guys up at Scarborough Beach. We're all heading in that direction. So why live not being who you are, and why live, and who the hell are you hurting? No one. So get on with it, And so now you're in between, you're in limbo land from one relationship. You're ready for the next one.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying just rediscovering what I love to do and how I want to live the next chapter. Now both my girls have moved over east, and it's just, I'm just in awe and wonder of life, really.
Yeah, and that's the power of meditation. Elliot talks about. I think Tom Knowles is his teacher. Tom Knowles and Rick Rubin, and I think Tom Knowles was. But they talk about a thing called, I think it's charm, being in that state of life, like doors opening. I say it's like Maxwell Smart, where he's walking on the white line and the doors keep opening, and it's that just the magic of not, this has got to happen. If it doesn't happen, I'm going to bust. It's like a state of somewhere between a state of gratitude or bliss and play. Playing at life as to say, well, I'm going to drive and make it happen. If it doesn't happen, I'm going to, all of that stuff. Good on you. Who knows which next door opens? But in the meantime, you're helping all these people. Via your website and via your talks and all the great work that you're doing. So thanks for sharing that chapter. Let me just go through the notes that I've made. I'm going to just jump out in no particular order. There's more to life than feet. There's more to life than that. Could be, more to life than teaching, more to life than accountancy, there's more to life than this. And then, as you say, the pain as a catalyst for action. We talk about, where people had a crazy busy life, where their habits were just work, as distinct from there's a song, isn't there? What about me? Who am I? When you were talking about, I was into the family, mountain bike riding, winning, leading, being busy. And of course, the universe then gave you a message. You're going, well, I'll give you some time to think about who you are, and you'll be on the couch. As you say, then the catalyst of mum passing, certainly in my life, my mate Tomo passing last year becomes a catalyst for a whole lot of thinking about, hang on, what am I going to do with the remaining limited time I've got available here? The value of the co-working space, burnout as a catalyst for change, which is beautiful there. Adrenal fatigue, if someone gave me that conversation, Leigh, you can't exercise. It's like, oh boy, that would be a hard one. And as you say, nature, being in nature, being grateful, having a kitten. My daughter, Grace, has a kitten as well. She called him Valentine she goes, he could be my boyfriend substitute. As well, she has a boyfriend as well, but at one stage, her and her boyfriend had a little party. She goes, no worries, Valentine will be the substitute. Ritual in not routine, but ritual. And I like that point you made, different by design. Beautiful. Bottling the feeling of elation. And that great question you ask people, and you've said it a couple of times, what's the first step you can take to move to that next chapter, to that next step. The irony there is you being a podiatrist and Confucius saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins at your feet with that first step. How ironic. I think there's something there. Where was it? I had replicate by design. Oh, there, the visualization, coming back to a time of pure joy and then replicating that by design, those pure joy moments. Beautiful, right? The 100 ways to play as an adult. We've got to put the link to that, I think, somewhere in this podcast. I think that's just too good. And then we talked about coaching conversation where change really does need to be intrinsically driven. And the role of the coach then is to create the conversation where the person, in fact, Lao Tzu says, when the great leader's work is done, people will say we did it ourselves.
Perfect.
And that's what you're doing, because we say telling isn't coaching. And you've given great book, Big Magic and Sound Talking, soundtracks. Mate, fantastic, Amanda. And thank you for being so open and sharing about your journey, particularly over the last few years and, coming out as gay, and who gives a shit? It's like, good on you. Do it.
Absolutely. It's not an identity at all. I just know that it helps people. It's just permission when you hear someone else has gone through something or experience. We all experience so much, and we talk about that at coffee.
Yes.
Everybody has something going on.
Oh my God, everyone's going through something. And I thought I saw somewhere, I think, was it on your website or somewhere, there was a butterfly, the metaphor of there it is, there it is butterflies. Yes, that whole concept of evolving, the caterpillar becoming a butterfly. And as someone once said, once you become the butterfly cannot go back to being a caterpillar. That's the evolutionary process. And really one of the things the yoga guys have talked about, it's about evolution and expanding. I love alliteration, but evolution, expanding, and life energy, and exploring, doing all those things that you're doing. So, Amanda, is there anything you'd like to say before we wind up?
There is one thing. I always love to say something else. If all of those things sound a little bit overwhelming, one of the questions that it's a beautiful question to ponder, and it comes back to when you were saying sometimes we don't even know what we're feeling, but how do you want to feel? Ask that question, journal on that, or ask a friend, see what comes up for other people. How do you want to feel? And asking that for yourself when you're not sure what your purpose is and you don't like your job or where you're at in life. How do you actually want to feel? And that can be a beautiful first step.
It's a wonderful question. And I come back to Tony Robbins and NLP. A lot of the stuff we do is based on NLP as a framework. And the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask, which reminds me of one of the final questions I like to ask people is, what does the future look like for Amanda Ewin?
The future is more joy, fun, and play. And the more people I can help have that in life, I think we just are going to change the trajectory of this frenzied world we live in. And someone used that word at coffee the other day after Pod Squad, this frenzied world that's just getting busier, and we need to slow down because it's not looking good otherwise. So I want to be able to help more people have more fun and play myself, and just keep pushing the doors open when one closes, and see the magic that happens, and just completely live in awe and wonder.
Fantastic. It really is about life by design. We talk about, leading your best life, but it's life by design and all the great things that you're doing. Amanda, thank you so much for spending time with us today. And let's share this podcast far and wide, and let's help you have not only create the future for you, but in doing so, as you say, changing lives one person at a time. That's how we change the world, one person at a time, one thought at a time, one conversation at a time. And this podcast here will create ripples for all sorts of people, including you and I. So thanks so much for your time, and I'll see you at Pod Squad very soon.
Thank you.
Namaste, as they say. All the best. Bye.